All right, so um, let's talk about how to read a tape measure, which is something that is fundamental for our career as a fabricator, our career as a welder, our careers as construction professionals. My understanding is that the K-12 educational system, kindergarten through 12th grade, no longer teaches how to read a tape measure, which is sad. A lot of times your first question in a job interview is can you show me what this is on a tape measure? Can you read this tape measure? So we're going to talk about how to read tape measures, and we're going to start off by something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, which is money. And I'm going somewhere with this, so just hang with me, all right? We've got $1. Okay. In a dollar, we've got 10 dimes. And in a dollar, we've got 100 cents. I've been accused of having no sense, which it's hard for me to argue against that. It is what it is, right? Okay, so let's take this and let's replace the word dollar with meter. And then we'll replace the word dimes with decimeter. And then we'll replace the word cents with centimeter. Oops. And we're going to add one more. We're going to take and say that there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. So 1 meter has 1,000 millimeters in it. 1 meter has 100 centimeters in it. 1 meter has 10 decimeters in it. And that is the metric system. So we use the metric system every day when we go to the store and we pull out money to pay for stuff. That's going away with, plastic cards that we carry in our wallet. But, if you've got $1, you've got 10 dimes worth of money. You've got 100 pennies or centimeters worth of money. And that's the metric system right there. So we, however, in the United States do not use the metric system. We use something called the imperial system, which, comes from like the Empire and the Alliance and Darth Sidious and, the Emperor and stuff. Reality is based on Star Wars, right? So we use the imperial system, and that's based instead of, the metric system's based on 10. The imperial system is based on half. You cut everything in half. So we're going to move away from the Star Wars analogy, and now we're going to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. So in Pirates of the Caribbean, there was this dude, this pirate that had his tongue cut out, and he had a parrot that sat on his shoulder and talked for him. And the parrot would squawk and go, pieces of 8, pieces of 8. And that's a pirate term, pieces of 8. So they would have a coin called a doubloon. We're talking about money again. Okay. So this is a Spanish doubloon, which is, a golden dollar. And whenever you had to make change for this, you would do it the easy way. You'd cut it in half. Now you've got half. Imagine doing that with $1 to make change, a dollar bill. Okay, and then to make change, you would cut it in half again, and now we have quarters. This is where our term for 25 cents comes from, is quarters. It's pieces of 8. Then to make it smaller amounts or units of change, we'd cut it in half again, and now this becomes bits. So 2 bits, this is 1 bit, 2 bits, and notice how uneven my bits are. You don't want me making change for you, okay? 2 bits is 1 quarter. I don't know if you've heard the term 6 bits, but that equals 75 cents, or 3 quarters, okay? So this is, again, money. We're talking about counting money, but this is also part of our measurement system. So let's go from money to inches now. This right here is going to represent 1 inch. 0 inches, 1 inch. Let's do that. 0 inches. 0 inches to 1 inch. The first thing we do is we cut that in half. Just like with the money. Although I don't think we're going to take a sword or an axe. We're just going to, this is all make-believe stuff. I took a math class one time, and the math instructor said that numbers are imaginary. And, you know, anyway, I think the instructor was left over from the hippie days, and he'd had one too many substances in his body. So anyway, so we're talking about inches, and we're dividing this in half. So we've got 1/2 inch, and then 1 inch. And the next thing we do is we divide it in half again. So this is 1/4 inch. This is actually 2/4 now. And this is 3/4. And then 4/4 is 1 inch. The next thing we do is we divide that in half again. Divide all of them in half. And this is 1/8. This is actually 2/8. See, there's 1, 2/8. This is 3/8. This is actually 4/8. This is 5/8. This is 6/8. This is 7/8. And down here we've got 8/8, which is equal to 1 inch. Okay, the little lines there are like quotation lines. That means an inch. Okay, then we divide this in half again. Divide all of these in half. Usually this is the smallest measurement on your tape measure. And that is 1/16, 2/16, 3/16. 4/16 is the same as 2/8, which is the same as 1/4 of an inch. Let's see, 5/16 right here. 3/8 is 6/16. This is 7/16. 1/2 of an inch is equal to 8/16. 9/16 right here. 10/16 is the same as 5/8. You see where I'm going with this, I hope. 11/16 is right here. 7/8 is actually 12/16. 6/8. And 3/4 is actually 12/16. Let's see, this is 13/16. 14/16. 15/16. And then 1 inch, come on. 1 inch is actually 16 of these 16th inch increments. Now, I don't know if you've noticed the pattern, but we start off with 1 inch, and then we cut it in 2, and it becomes 2/2 inches. We cut that in half, and it becomes 1/4 inches. We cut that in half, and it becomes 1/8 inches. We cut that in half, it becomes 16th inches. We cut that in half and it becomes 32nds of an inch. We cut that in half and it becomes 64ths of an inch. And we cut that in half and it becomes 128ths of an inch. All you got to do is just divide it in half. All you have to do is multiply the bottom number by 2. So let's say that we have 7/8 of an inch, and we want to know what half of 7/8 is. We'll just multiply it by the bottom number by 2, and we find out that half of 7/8 is 7/16. If we want to know what half of 7/16 is, we'll just take that bottom number and multiply it by 2. Half of 7/16 is 7/32. Half of that is 7/64. Half. So this really makes the division of fractions of an inch real easy. Just to to divide anything in half, you multiply the bottom by 2. I'm not going to go into all the math there. I just want you to be able to read a tape measure. We'll get into the number stuff later on, I believe. Okay, so review. The longest lines are inches. 12 inches is 1 foot. Some tapes have cumulative inches. In other words, once it gets to 1 foot, the inches keep going. So it goes, 11 inches, 12 inches, which is 1 foot. Then it'll say 13 inches, 14 inches, 15 inches, and so on. Some tape measures, instead of that, it'll go up to 12 inches, and then it'll say 1 foot, and then it starts the inches all over again. So you got 1 foot, 1 inch, 1 foot, 2 inches, 1 foot, 3 inches. So carpenters use inches for everything. They'll say, oh, this is 156 inches long, or this is 232 inches long. Iron workers use feet and inches. We'll say it's 5 feet, 7 3/4 of an inch. None of this tomfoolery with the inch stuff. Cool people copy iron workers. If you learn one thing from this video, it's if you want to be cool, copy iron workers. Okay, the second largest markings are your half inch. So this is half of an inch. This one right here is an inch and a half. And this is 2.5 inches. The line might be labeled half inch. It might not have a label on it. It might just have, as in this case, just a line on the tape measure. Always add the inch to the measurement that came right before it. For example, half an inch mark between the 3 and the 4 inches is going to be 3.5 inches. Okay. Then the third largest are the 1/4 inch. So these are the 1/4 inch marks. And of course you see, like, here's an 1.25 inches right there. 1 3/4 is right there, and so forth. 1/4 inch marks, they're centered. We're dividing everything by 2. We're cutting everything in half. Sometimes they will have markings on there saying it's a 1/4 inch. Sometimes they won't have those markings on it. And right here, your half inch is actually the same as 4/8 or 2/4. Okay, because the reason, math. Okay, your quarters are divided into eighths. So, and then of course, 1 inch is 8/8, so you can count them. There's 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Okay, let's see. Every inch has 8/8 in it. They're usually not labeled. You can, 16ths. These are your 16th inches. They're the smallest usually. Sometimes you'll get a tape measure that's got 32nds or even 64ths, but you won't see that often. And of course, everything's divided in half perfectly. So whenever you're in doubt, I don't know what this line right here is. You'll say, okay, there's 1 inch right here. 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4, 5/16, 6/16, 7/16, 8/16, 9/16, 10/16. Oh, this one's 11/16. So when in doubt, you can just count the lines, and that'll tell you what it is. And if it's the short one, it's a 16th. If it's the next one, it's an 1/8. If it's the next one, it's a 1/4. And of course, you've got your half right here in the middle. Okay, so again, review. Half of 7/8 is 7/16. Half of 7/16 is 7/32. Half of 7/32 is 7/64, and so on. So if we want to figure out, what's half of 6 inches. See, all this math is messed up. So, if you've got 6 3/4 and you want to know what half of that is, well, half of 6 is 3 inches. Half of 3/4 is 3/8. So, and again, I don't want to get too heavy into the math thing. I want you to be able to look at a tape measure and know what those numbers are. The math will come later, okay? Best way to practice this is grab yourself a tape measure and start measuring things around the house. And that'll get you used to reading a tape measure. And that's what this video is about, is reading that tape measure. Thank you for your time. I bid you the best success.